Jerome, can you tell me a little bit about PCM?
Yeah, PCM was developed by a psychologist named Taby Kayla, who's a psychologist, and he developed it as a communication expert. He created PCM in the 70s, and it comes out of transactional analysis a little bit. And the interesting thing about it is NASA used it to choose astronauts because it's a communication model. It has basically six personality types that are within us. It doesn't define who we are, but it says the styles that are in us. So there's the harmonizer, the thinker, persister, imaginer, rebel, and promoter. And each of those are within us, but we have the ones that we go to the most. So for instance, I'm an imaginer, and that has certain elements to it. So each of us has different personality types within us, and we have ones that are our strengths or our base, and then we may have what we call a phase. Something's occurred in our lives that makes us go and use another style a little bit more.
Why PCM over other assessments?
That's a great question. There's some great assessments. So this is not about putting any other assessments down. Like DISC focuses on observable behavior, and StrengthsFinders focuses on the talents. What PCM focuses on is communication and understanding just not what people do, but what they do and why they do it and how they communicate. So PCM is more of a communication model, and DISC is a behavior model, and StrengthsFinders is a talent model. So if you're trying to work on improving your communication within your organization, PCM is a great model because it gives you sort of a roadmap to what style of communication is going to work best with certain people. So for instance, if you're working with a thinker, and thinkers are more about logic, and you're an imaginer like I am, which I'm more about a visual, looking at different approaches and very reflective. It's very important for me as an imaginer to understand as a thinker, I have to come and be more requestive, ask you questions, be more curious. As an imaginer, if you're talking to me, you need to be more directive. Tell me what you want. So those are different things that occur. And what each of these styles does, it deals with psychological needs. So for me, it's very important for me to have a degree of solitude. And for others, for the thinker, it's really important for them for you to have to be more requestive, ask questions, be more curious.
Can you give me an example of how you apply PCM in organization, in your work?
Yes, a great way to look at it is knowing that there's a certain amount of currency. So understanding the currency and the communication model is very important. So an example of this I would give you is if you are in US and say you go to France and the currency exchange is different. So either you have to go in and exchange your money for French money or vice versa. Same thing happens on communication. The currency is different for each style. So the currency for me is around solitude. The currency for a thinker is around recognition of work and time. When those psychological needs are met, we're great. When they're not met, we get into stressful and we become more stressful and we become distressed. It has such a negative impact.
So how do you reconcile both? Did you have like an approach, or what's been your experience on that?
Yeah, so my experience is really understanding where you are in the condominium of the PCM model and where do you require a little bit more effort and work. So as the condominium, which you'll see in the video, is if you are at the top of your condominium, if you are dealing with a thinker, so that's their strongest point, but your thinker is at the top and it's your weakest point, then you will have to do a little bit more work on connecting with that thinker, being a little bit more intentional about your approach and communication. So it's a cheat code. I mean, if you study the PCM model, you can actually effectively communicate with anyone. And one of the things that happens in education is, for instance, the rebel. The rebel is contact is very important. So you may have a kid that comes into class, hey, what's happening? High five, play, let's play. They're very playful. Education isn't very playful. So a lot of those kids get sent to the principal's office, the dean's office. They were told they have ADHD or some other negative connotation. The rebels have the most difficult time in school because school isn't designed for people to have fun. It's designed more for thinkers and persisters and less for creatives. So a rebel or a promoter may have some challenges. For me, what was great being in school was, as an imaginer, I could be in a classroom when I start daydreaming. I lose attention, my attention span would drift. But because of athletics, it gave me a forum for that contact to be creative. It made school fun because school itself for me wasn't fun, but being an athlete was. And I knew that in order to be an athlete, I had to do at least decent at school.
So within organizations, you have various styles of communicators. They each have their own currency. How do you reconcile all those currencies so that people can exchange properly?
Good question, Alex. The key is how we see the world, our perceptions, how we perceive the world. And so for an imaginer, I perceive the world in a very calm, imaginative place. And it's really important for me to have solitude. I like to reflect a lot. Someone else who's a harmonizer, they perceive the world from a standpoint of sensory recognition. Their environment is very important to them. So for instance, how I perceive the world, if I put my perceptions on everyone else and I expect them to see the world as I do, I'm really restricting how well we can communicate. When I opened up my lens to be able to understand how other people perceive the world, it changes. So for instance, my son perceives the world from a thinker, persister perspective. I perceive the world from an imaginer rebel. Our communication has increased and gotten better as a result of me understanding what his psychological needs are as a thinker, persister, and him doing a better job of understanding what my needs are of an imaginer rebel. The more time we spend understanding what the psychological needs are of another person, the more effective the communication would be. The currency is really important. Understanding what that person needs is going to enhance communication.